President of the Education for Life Foundation, whose mission is to train grassroots leaders for empowerment. ELF was founded in 1992 and continues to provide training services to develop grassroots leaders. Ed has also a short stint in government, serving for 3 years as Director General of Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, or TESDA. People say nga, Ed has 4X, ex-priest, ex-detainee, ex-government, and ex-rebel.
The topic I will use to frame my talk was used in 1968 by the Latin American Bishops' Conference between honesty and hope. Honesty meaning, come on, let's face, we've got lots of problems, including among those trying to solve the problems. But hope nonetheless. We used to say in the late 80s, early 90s, maybe some of us in the fervor of the 60s, the 70s, our hope was almost drunken. Hope now is a sober hope. Very often even somber hope. But hope nonetheless, for without hope, there is no patience. Without hope, there will be no effort. Just to show off my artwork. The girl on the right was a human rights poster I painted in 1984 in prison. The two birds struggling against bars is something I painted this year together with a bird blue, green purple. 68 to 2008 is VSO, 40 years. What can we say? The problem of framework and perspective, historical, contextual, is always trumped by immediate, emotional, urgent experiences. Zoom back a little. We're players at particular moments in time, and we must look at the meaning of what we have done and what we want to do, not just in terms of its immediacy, although that's the most important, but also a larger story, a larger narrative. This one comes from Stephen Covey, Mormon for Salt Lake City. When I read this one, I said, that's the problem with most workshops I have attended. Your circle of concern, things you care about, get passionate about, want to do something about, is always bigger than what you're capable of. You, especially volunteers and partners, you care about so many things and you can only do so much, and you attend another workshop and then the circle gets bigger. So that's the dilemma. And beyond that, we all have our specialization. What is the particular lens, the center of gravity, the focal passion through which we look? What is the center of focus of VSO? Of course, your mantra says, sharing skills, changing lives. Oh. You are from another place, another culture, hopefully with some useful skill. You come to a place, enter into partnership, interact with them, change yourself. That's fine. I mean, sharing skills, changing yourself. That's also a good mantra. Forget what you've done to the Philippines. Ask, what have you done to yourself? Or what has the Philippines done to you? And what have you learned? And what have you changed? It is the healthy realization that every encounter, every relationship, even if asymmetrical, has a mutuality. And once you're aware of that, it's healthier when we evaluate. Also more modest. We also learn. We also change. Focus. This is my focus. Somehow, I'm stuck with social justice as a core value. What's the point of justice? Justice is not just concerned with a broad, perfect arrangement. There's a certain partisanship. It looks at those who are disadvantaged, marginalized, weaker, poorer. It's partisan. And that's why it has to be tempered by the issue now, the discourse of sustainability, inclusiveness, and all that. The political framework that has marked my own sensibility is 72 to 86 repression and resistance. The issue of justice, the issue of sustainability, development, and all that was somehow colored by a larger frame. The drama, there is resistance. Resistance is almost glorious in movies and literature, because resistance is simply concerned with pointing out what's wrong and opposing it and taking a stand. It is not yet responsible for building what will replace it. 86, of course, was the watershed. Because in 86, we had hope that the telenovela of Philippine resistance and repression will end with an uprising of the people, Marcos falls, and the red flag on Malacanang. When I came out of prison, I said I was very happy because I was released. But I'm a social justice revolution. How can I judge EDSA simply by the fact that Marcos was gone and prisoners were released? Because the dilemma, and really the long-term dilemma, is not just, is the state democratic? Who's handling it? Is the governance good? What's happening to the lives of the people? What about inequalities in society? Who's got the assets? It's not as simple as dictatorship, elite democracy, and then what we call popular democracy. It is really a dilemma, and even now in the Philippines, that this tension, there are tendencies toward repression. And then, of course, all of us want to promote popular democracy aligned with liberal democracy and pluralism. But people want to consolidate conservative democracy. And the three are overlapping. How do you operate in that context? This is the new framework I am proposing. How do you fight for fairness in a fragile world? In the name of sustainability and ensuring that the fragile world is sustained, you might say, downplay the struggle, lessen the demands. Fragility. Fragility is not just lack of resources. It's the social fabric, it's the structure. It describes not just the world in general, the Philippines in particular, Mindanao in particular. Two different passions, two different ideas. But you cannot postpone one for the other. They must be handled simultaneously. I went to the National Bookstore in Makati to buy a book. I saw one that had an interesting title, 10 Laws of Lifetime Growth. And these are 3 of the 10. When your past is lousy, it's easy to think of a good future. But when you have a past that is reasonably worth being proud of, we ask ourselves, can a future still be better? Can still be bigger? So, challenge to VSO, volunteers, partners. Create, think, imagine a future bigger than your past. How? Well, the next one, make your learning greater than your experience. Learning is always richer, but learning is not automatic. Experience is richer, but it's not automatically learning unless it's reflected upon. And it cannot be reflected upon in isolation because you might draw the wrong lessons. That's why we have to be interrogated, allow ourselves to be interrogated by others. Because in the process of trying to communicate to someone else, then you realize, oh, that's an angle I didn't think of. The whole idea of you keep regurgitating your experiences, your interpretation of that, and then reflect again in the light of new experiences, new questions, new challenges. And that's why the third is very important. Make your questions bigger than your answers. I think it's a good point. I think even for volunteers and development workers, to not just pose questions, but to allow ourselves to be questioned. Because as one put it, an answer in a sense flows as a certain process. That's an answer. It's definitive. Well, a question always opens up. And development, visions and processes of development, empowerment, sustainability, whatever the mantra, if not anything, are open-ended processes.